Endora brews marital trouble for Samantha and Darren when she grants him 3 wishes without his knowledge. Tonight we'll be discussing Bewitched episode number 96 from season 3, 3 Wishes. Welcome to Twitch Talk. Yay! Yeah!
Twitch Talk, brought to you by The Bewitched History Book by David L. Pierce, covering all 254 episodes of Bewitched and tying in the real-life events of the time.
Well. Having fun out there. Look at you sitting there like a watched pot. You need to get out and boil. For your information, I am having fun. I'm reading the Bewitched History Book by David L. Pierce, which contains information on all 254 episodes of Bewitched, with episode descriptions, reviews, and trivia, and also ties in the events of the times with each episode. Available from Bear Manor Media. Well, that does sound like fun. Guess I'm not needed this time. But I'll be back, no doubt. Welcome to Twitch Talk, everybody. Does everybody have a delightful beverage? Yes, no, yes. Neville never has this delightful beverage. I've never had that. He has got so many demerits from Hepzibah, it's not funny.
I have to keep on brand.
So we're going to start off, and I'm going to introduce everybody. I'm Mark Simpson, and we have the co-host David Pierce.
Hi.
And Adam Michael James. Hi. And we have our Twitch Talker panel. We have Justin. Yay! And Anna. Yay! And Taylor is here. Yay! And June. Yay! And Neville. Yay! And last but not least, Susan. Yay! How's everybody doing?
Absolutely great.
Magical, darling. I'm all right except for my left.
So, all right. So let's get started here. Tonight we're going to be talking about Bewitched episode number 96, 3 Wishes. This episode was written by Robert Riley Crutcher. It was directed by William Asher and produced by William Frug. The executive producer is Harry Ackerman. The cast includes Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha, Dick York as Darren, Agnes Moorehead as Endora, and David White as Larry Tate. The additional cast includes Linda Gaye Scott as Buffy Baker, Edith Sills as the secretary, Robert Stiles as the Western Union boy, and the boy at the airport is uncredited. So now David has some historical information that he can give us on this episode. So David, take it away.
Thank you, Mark. 3 Wishes is the 22nd episode of Season 3 and the 96th episode of the series overall. Production was completed on December 12, 1966, and the episode was originally broadcast on the ABC television network on February 9, 1967 at 8:30 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. There was no rerun of this episode in primetime. Some interesting facts about the week that this aired. On this specific date of February 9th, 1967, a powerful earthquake registering 6.8 on the Richter scale shook Columbia for 90 seconds, killing 98 people. The number one song on the Billboard chart was I'm a Believer by the Monkees, which was written by Neil Diamond. And the number one movie for the week beginning February 9th, 1967 was Grand Prix, starring James Garner and Eva Marie Saint. It was released by MGM, and the film would go on to make $20.8 million at the box office, which today is equivalent to $182,215,215.57. And that's all I've got.
Okay. So now let's check in here with Mike on some continuity issues.
Oh yes, continuity is my bag. And we're going to get started with this one right off the top. Darren gets to perform witchcraft in this episode. That's never happened before. That's pretty cool. And Dora actually looks pretty terrified when it looks like he's going to zap her out of maybe not existence, but it's bad. And she looks pretty terrified, which is cool. The flip side of all this is that we've seen this Three Wishes stuff before. Just in the previous season in Double Tate, Darren was also granted 3 wishes. The only difference is in second season, he used up all his wishes, and in this one, he didn't even know he had them. Also, what's interesting about this episode is that Samantha knows that there's a spell in play from the beginning, and that's pretty unusual. Usually, she doesn't figure that out until later. And we also get a name for the witchly outfit that Samantha wears that we've seen ever since the Vision of Sugar Plums, but now we get to find out that it's called a flying suit. I will have more continuity for you later, but let's see what our panel has to say.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So now we'll move on to the panel, and we'll get their thoughts about the episode, any bloopers that they noticed or anything like that, and then they will rate it. They'll rate the episode from 1 to 4 stars. And 1 being the worst and 4 being the best. And we'll go back at the end and we'll average out the ratings and come up with the overall rating for this episode. So let's start with Justin.
Thank you, Mark. I've always liked this episode ever since I first saw it when I was a kid. There's one thing that's always bothered me about it, and that's the distrust that Sam had for Darren. I know her thinking he had 3 wishes and using them the way he did looks bad. And I know that him calling his hotel room and having a woman answer it looks bad. But I think in a relationship, there should be trust. And, the default reaction of somebody seeing that evidence, he or she, the first assumption should be, there's a reasonable explanation for this. And she should have at least asked Darren about all this when he got home. She was packing her bag and she was going to leave without even giving him a chance to explain. So I thought that as soon as Darren got home, she should have had a discussion and said, what, Darren? My mother gave you 3 wishes and I think you did so-and-so and so-and-so. Then I called your hotel room and a woman answered. What's going on here? That's the only negative I have about this episode. There were 2 lines in this episode that I thought were hilarious. At the beginning, when Darren got off the phone for the last time, he said, "That was no lady, that was my mother-in-law." I thought that was funny. And the second line, that actually, I believe, occurs in multiple episodes. When Samantha says, "I'm going to go home to mother," he says, "What do you mean you're going home to your mother? She's always here." I thought that was funny. In terms of the wishes, when Darren realizes that he had wishes but he didn't use them, he said, "Wish number 1, I wish your mother was standing in front of me right now." And she appears. And at that moment, the look on Sam's face, great acting by Elizabeth Montgomery. It's this look of shock and regret. And I really like that. And then wish number 2, the timing was perfect between Dick York and Elizabeth Montgomery. Dick York said, "I wish your mother would stay out of our lives for..." And he was going to say forever, but Sam stopped him. And then he said, for 1 week. I love this episode. I give it 4 stars.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Anna.
Okay, well, I am with Justin about the line about I'm going home to mother, and he says your mother's always here. I love that line, and it goes to something I like about this episode is that it's a family drama, and like, yeah, ostensibly it's about the 3 wishes, but it's really about family. And it's one of the things I just find so charming about Bewitched is that there's just this sweetness and simplicity to it. I think that Dick York is just outstanding in this episode. I love how he gets more and more agitated with the phone calls and then just kind of confuses himself because he's getting so steamed. I'm trying to think, there's this thing of Samantha hurrying to make breakfast, which is just so funny. It always sort of makes me think that it's the ultimate perfect wife thing. Like, oh, I have to have his breakfast done just right when he comes down. She's making creamed chicken. And I don't know, maybe I'm like betraying my class background here, but it sounds so horrible to me, like school lunch food or something, but it's part of her being a perfect wife. Darren, again, on the when he's on the bench at the airport, when he's wrestling with the suitcase, I think Dick York is just one of the best physical actors ever. And the same with him being soaking wet. He just conveys so much. And I also love the line of this tension thing where he's about to say never come back, but he just can't because he loves Sam so much. So it's just a very sweet episode and charming. I just think it's a great episode.
Okay. So what's your rating?
4 stars.
4 stars.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Kaylee's next.
I usually really like third seasons of shows. They have their form and their style down. The characters, we sort of know who they are, and the actors feel really comfortable inside them. And I agree with Anna. I think that is especially true here of Dick York. I don't really like Darren that much. He's usually, for lack of a better word, a dick. But as much as I don't like Darren usually, Dick York really carries this episode. His ability to balance charm with humor, it renders a believable fidelity for Samantha. I think that's already impressive enough of York's acting, of his real talent, but the physical comedy here, especially in that bedroom suitcase scene, I think is extraordinary. I mean, if you think about it, Dick York is acting off luggage hanging on strings. But what is rendered is this really, truly believable scene in which he's interacting with Samantha. And the moment that he sells that scene is when she splits in half, or I guess you're meant to think. She splits in half and he kind of shudders and says, she wouldn't. That makes the scene so hysterical, a little bit scary, but definitely very memorable. So I really think that this episode is York's episode, and for someone who doesn't like Darren but really likes him in this episode, I think it deserves a 4. So I give this a full 4 out of 4.
Okay. June.
Wait a second. Let me get my glasses on so I can see all of you. Well, first of all, I was like, did she call him in the beginning just to stall him so he would come down and she would, or Samantha was still getting breakfast and she was stalling him, or was she just being annoying? I'd like to know that. Why did she do this in the first place? Was she stalling him for that?
Probably a
And-
little bit of both.
Yeah, a little bit of both. I was thinking that too. And also, it's like, I thought it was really stupid after she made all this breakfast that Darren was like, no, I don't have time to eat. I was like, oh, come on. You could have put a piece of toast and just grabbed something and went out the door. So I was a little irritated with him at that. Just shovel in a few bites. And also, I mean, I did think it was kind of cute that, Buffy and her glasses, oh God, we wouldn't want her to have glasses on, so, it would diminish from her good looks. That's a whole other thing. But one thing I agree with Justin. I think it was terrible that she didn't even listen to Darren when she was so mad. She didn't even give him a chance to explain. And I was like, he even said, I spent the night at the airport, but and she was mad. I mean, she was cruel mad. I was like, I've never seen her. I don't know if I've seen her that angry at him before, and it really kind of just irritated me that she wouldn't even give him a chance until she found out that his wishes, were, he didn't use the wishes, I guess, basically. I did love her perfume bottles lined up. Those are beautiful. I was like, ooh. Collecting perfume bottles now are so pretty. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it. It was fun. So I'm going to go against what everybody else has said, and I'm only going to give this a 2. I didn't like it, and I was irritated about it, and I felt like it was almost a filler episode, that it just didn't even have anything about it. So I did not care for this episode so much. So
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, well. All right. So let's go on to Neville.
Hi, guys. So, to Taylor's point, I think, especially in season 3, I feel that the characters now have found even more of a footing in its space. I loved season 3 overall. I think that was one of my favorite seasons of the show besides season 1. This episode in particular, I have to agree with Taylor's point. This really showed a lot of Dick York's talent. There's a few episodes in the entire series that he's in where you get to see a lot of Dick Yorkness. And of course, Mirror Mirror on the Wall is my all-time favorite episode of Dick York's in the entire run of the show. This episode, to me, to Justin's point, I loved the beginning scenes with the telephone, and when he gets downstairs and it's Larry on the phone, and I love the fact that Larry said that he wanted his autograph for the fact of how he talked in reference to Endora. I love that part of seeing that side of Larry, going like, he hates his mother-in-law too. That's the thing. So I thought that was funny. Obviously, the line of Samantha going, "I'm going home to mother," and Darren said, "Your mother's always here." And I remember hearing that the first time in Dangerous Diaper Dan, so that now became a shtick going forward, which I absolutely adored. When we talked about the luggage scene, it was so nice to see that again in the reverse, because this happened in season 1 in Help, Don't Save Me. And they did the same thing then, and it was the reverse. Darren didn't believe Samantha about her using witchcraft for those ideas for the Caldwell Soup campaign. Here it is on the reverse. Samantha didn't believe Darren about the 3 wishes. And if you listen carefully, they also use the same music in both of those episodes, in those scenes with the luggage. So I thought that was a nice tie-in between those two when they did those again. That this was one of those times where you kind of considered Darren to win against Endora. I did like that little aspect of it. And what if Samantha wasn't there? I always thought that if Samantha wasn't there and he actually finished the word forever, would Endora go away forever? I mean, he had that power right there, and then she would be gone forever. Would she be able to stay away? I always thought about that, but as everybody has said here, it's just that love for Samantha that he did not do that, and he stopped himself when Samantha stopped him. and just said for 1 week. It just shows how much he loves her in order for him to just say just for 1 week and don't be gone for the rest of our lives. So I thought this was a really great episode. I loved Buffy. Glasses on, aren't I in? I just like that line. I was going like, cheesy but effective. And I really felt it was a mood when she was in the bed when she hung up the phone with Samantha saying, "If you pardon me, I am dead." I was like, you know what? I completely understand that. When I'm tired, please, I'm dead. So I related to that line very much. I definitely give this episode a 4.
All right, Susan.
Okay. I had a lot of notes about this episode until David and Mike talked. This is one of the few episodes where Sam and Darren trade places on the bed. And I don't really know why they did that. Sam always sits on the right side as you look at the bed, and Darren's on the left. So he would have just come in from the bathroom and been right there next to the bed. But they switched her. And I don't really understand what that was about. But it really jumped out at me because I just noticed these kind of things. The fact that Sam gets a telegram Larry sends the telegram to Darren really dates the episode because you just can't do that anymore. Telegrams are really a thing of the past. It also jumped out at me about the different Betty. She's definitely Betty because both Larry and Darren call her that, but she's only credited as a secretary. Do I like this episode? Yes, I do. It's got a lot of funny stuff in it. I agree with all y'all that Dick York is just amazing in this episode. You know, and Mike said this too, I'm sure, that it's a retread of the episode in earlier episode in earlier season where the 3 wishes are granted. And to me, that's just lazy to do that again. And they don't even have the excuse of being season 8 when they were running out of ideas. And reran the suitcase shtick. So for that reason, I give it. I don't think it's as good as I would have otherwise. I'll give it a 3.
All right, thanks, Susan. So let's move on to David and get his thoughts on this episode.
So I'm going to go along the lines of June because Darren was so irritating to me in this episode, specifically because she goes to all that trouble to make breakfast and he doesn't want it. And then later on, he comes home and she says that she's making the cream chicken and he's like, just shut up, Darren. Take what she's trying to do. And, but I like the idea that they retread the floating suitcases because it was really cool to see in color. And I like that they used the same sound effects. So I also noticed in Dora's hair, to me, it felt like out of place. Like if she had been on Star Trek, that would have been a really cool hairdo for Star Trek, but it was just really weird to me. And I also felt like she popped in the morning because Ed was messing around with the phone just because she was bored and she likes to tick him off. Oh, the boy at the airport, that always confused me. I always felt like we missed a scene because it's just so weird. And like the cap he wears, I always thought for some reason that he might be Oliver Twist. I don't know. It's a weird scene. And then the last thing, when Darren's doing his wishes and demands that she appear right there, and then he says, "I wish that you would stay out of our lives for..." If you look at Agnes Moorehead's face, she is absolutely petrified that he's going to say forever, which I feel like harkens back to the previous 3 Wishes episode where a time lock's been put on and you just have to wait it out. And so if he had said forever, she would have probably not been able to have contact with them at all just because of how the wishes work. So all in all, I like the episode, but Darren really irritates me in this episode. I feel like Samantha was very justified in being mad at him because her mother was filling her head with all these ideas that seemed to be true. So I only give it 3 stars, but I really like it.
Okay. What else do you have to add, Mike?
Oh well, it looks like a lot of you guys have covered some of the stuff I had in my notes, which is good. It means we're all on the same wavelength. I wonder when Darren is going through the whole prank call thing, before going to the theme, and he goes, "What are they up to?" It's like, who's they? I'm assuming he means Endora and Samantha, but why would he think that Samantha is doing anything to prank him? That just is out of nowhere. Also kind of out of nowhere is when Larry's in the office and is upset about having to go to Honolulu because I had plans. Boy, did I have plans. Oh, so he's cheating on Louise? This is not the first time that Samantha offers to turn herself into something so that she can accompany Darren on a trip. She last did that in Cat's Meow, where she was going to, turn herself into a cat, and then Darren spends the whole time thinking this cat is Samantha. Can you imagine if he had, seen a necktie he didn't recognize in his luggage and spent half an episode yelling at a necktie? I wonder when Samantha tells Endora that Darren has to take over for Larry when he's gone. That doesn't make sense to me because Larry is, as he will say later, El Presidente, and Darren is an account executive. So I don't see how he can take over for Larry. There were a couple other things. Susan mentioned that they were sleeping on the wrong side of the bed. But also, there's a bureau and the mirror there by the door, the bedroom door, but now there's a closet there. Yeah, so that's kind of, the closet will show up again, but still, it's kind of strange. And then Darren's hotel room. Y'all tried it, but you didn't get away with it. That is clearly the master bedroom redressed badly, and the only thing that makes it look like a hotel is that there's a Bible sitting on the dresser. Gideon, I would assume. And where's Tabitha? Where's Tabitha in all this? Was she just going to leave Tabitha with Darren? I'm wondering. Maybe she's still with Ho-Ho. I really do like this episode. It doesn't wow me, but I like it. I have to admit, Darren's kind of cute with his stubble and his rumpled tuxedo. But yeah, I think it doesn't really stand out for me, so I'm going to give this one 2.5.
Well, it's a half a point better than June. All right, well, my turn. This is not one of my favorite episodes. It's okay, but it's not in my top 25 or anything like that. Probably not even my top 50, but it's okay. The big issue that I have with this episode, and I'm surprised that Mike did not mention this, in the scene where Endora and Samantha are on the patio and the phone rings, Samantha gets up and walks into the living room to answer the phone, but when they cut to the shot of the phone on top of the television, she's coming from the opposite direction, like she's coming from the front door. And that has always bugged me. So I don't know. What did she do? Did she walk all the way around the sofa behind the camera on the other side? I don't know. Was there another scene in there somewhere that got cut for time or something? I don't know. But she comes from the wrong direction to pick up the phone. And that has always bugged me about this episode. That's the main beef about this episode. The woman in the hat, if you notice, she's seen twice in this episode. She's seen in the office when Larry's talking to the secretary. She's behind her, typing or whatever. And then when Darren's on the bench in the airport later on, she walks up and she sits down behind him against the wall. So she's in 2 scenes in this episode. And the boy that's at the bench, like staring at Darren while he's laying there, look at him very closely. And I never noticed this until I just saw it today when I was reviewing the episode. It's like, at one point, he looks like he's about to start laughing. But he doesn't, but he just looks like he's trying to like hold in laughter, which I thought was pretty cool. The suitcase thing, it's almost identical to the season 1 episode. It's almost identical. It's the same background music, same everything. And it's almost identical. I can't believe how they almost did that identically to the first time they did it before. And that is a really cool. I mean, you know, the way that they had to do special effects back then. I mean, they actually had to have somebody up over the set with, you know, the wires, you know, moving the suitcases and all. I mean, it was just it's so great. And this is the only episode where they refer to Samantha's witch's robes as her flying suit. Again, not one of my favorite episodes, but I don't not like it. But I guess I would also give this one 3 stars. Okay, so we will take a break, and when we come back, we are going to average out the ratings and get the overall rating for episode number 96, 3 Wishes. We'll be back in a moment.
Fashion-wise, this episode to me just shows Samantha as the ultimate wife. Everything she wears is really pretty simple. Her little pants and top. Her dress is very plain. I mean, it's a beautiful, rich brown color, but it's not as cute as some of her other outfits. She never leaves the house in this episode. When the dress is brown and her other themes here are green, it's another episode where she kind of blends into the house.
Gentlemen, people love classic TV. And what's more classic than Bewitched? But in the 60s, audiences didn't demand the same level of continuity that we expect today. So how to make sense of 8 seasons of Bewitched? The Bewitched Continuum, the only book to compare and contrast all 254 episodes, along with witch illnesses, top 10s, and more. It's the ultimate linear guide. And the slogan? The Bewitched Continuum. Come feel the magic. Now in color.
Lovely Linda Gaye Scott portrayed model Buffy Baker in Season 3's 3 Wishes. In her podcast, Linda's Bumpy Ride, Linda recalls her memories of filming scenes for the episode.
I have many memories of Bewitched, even though I did only one show. A wonderful gentleman was Darren, Dick York, who could be very funny and had a way of making everyone laugh, including me. There was a scene in that show when I was in bed. It was perfectly innocent, but when I answered the phone, I accidentally sneezed. And at that moment, Bill Asher screamed, "Cut!" And I was mortified and immediately said, "I'm sorry." He waited for everyone to be quiet and said, "Take 2, and action!" At that very moment, the lunch wagon outside tooted the horn, and everything went to hell in a handbasket. In looking back, I vividly recall a specific day we were filming, and Agnes Moorehead and Dora was not feeling well. My recollection was that she changed her dialogue. Uh-oh. But it didn't matter because she delivered her own version with perfection and made perfect sense. Although Bill Asher, our director, seemed to be turning red. Yes, actually, he looked as if he was going to blow his top. Agnes saw it. She was so good and recognized it so fast, and she immediately yelled, "Stop! Stop right now! Contain yourself, because everything I said worked perfectly and I do not feel well. So, if you want me to continue, I will, but otherwise, I'm leaving now." There was a period of great silence, and no human being dared to say a word. And then Bill Asher cleared his throat and said, "Yes, those lines you delivered were perfect. Thank you."
You can listen to the I Am Bewitched episode of Linda's Bumpy Ride, as well as other episodes, wherever you get your podcasts.
Twitch Talk has been brought to you by The Bewitched Continuum by Adam Michael James, the ultimate linear guide to the classic TV series, now in color.
All right, so let's move on and get back to Three Wishes. Now we're going to average out the ratings, and let's go through really fast and just remind everybody of how everybody voted on this episode. Justin, 4 stars. Anna, 4 stars. Taylor, 4 stars. June, 2 stars. Novelle, 4 stars. Susan, 3 stars. David, 3 stars. Mike, 2.5 stars. And I gave it 3 stars. So when we take this and average it out, we come up with 3.277777778. So this one we're going to have to round it down to 3 stars. So 3 Wishes gets 3 stars.
I love it. To be more appropriate, I mean,
Samantha loses her powers due to a bug that spreads whenever she's kissed, and a visit from Maurice leaves him earthbound, where he proceeds to make a royal pain of himself. Next time on Twitch Talk, we'll be discussing Bewitched episode number 237, A Plague on Maurice and Samantha.
Yay! Okay, I want to thank David, Mike, Justin, Anna, Taylor, June, Novelle, and Susan. Best wishes, everyone. And I've been granted 3 wishes, and I want all of you out of my life for until the next episode. See you next time.